I think that painting is something I choose every day. Every time I come into the studio, I am met with a certain degree of resistance. Painting for me is always a kind of combination of belief and doubt. And this is what keeps it alive and unpredictable. I don't feel like I'm using the image to reproduce something. I'm almost trying to get beyond the image. And how I have to do that, it has to change each time. I once compared painting to a game of boule, where you're hitting one ball with another ball and then you're changing the position of the other ball. And that certainly is what I aim for by painting on so many things at once in the studio, paintings that are markedly different superficially, but they've been made at the same time. And it's almost like, how many ways can I stretch this idea of the subjective versus the objective, and how much can one painting almost influence another without it being obvious? Even having the paint left on the palette from one painting that then migrates into another. Or an idea, something I can work out on one surface, I can then put it in another. So I feel like there's like some juggling, but it's all to get each painting almost more to its own zenith, more to its own essence. And then together they do make a whole. I use sand and I use rice, and sometimes I use metallic pigments. I also use different kinds of linen, thick weave or a very fine weave. I use acrylic, I use oil. So all these choices help to bring something different out into the image. And I want the surface of the painting to be the most real encounter, that whatever illusion, whatever I'm painting is interrupted by the surface, so that the viewer is constantly moving in a way between the real and the imaginary, or the real and the symbolic, and that the canvas itself, I don't want it to be something you could ignore. I think there's a very specific kind of information that only this form can communicate, and that is primarily this. It exists on the surface. So I want to foreground this, and especially now when so many paintings are received through different media, such as photography or a screen, when one actually encounters the painting in real life, there should be a shock, a surprise that actually it isn't at all a unified surface. There's a lot of breaks and cracks and holes. There's a lot of space to enter as someone looking. And there's a lot of conflict and disruption. It's not a smooth thing, because there's also a contradiction where the brain really wants to make sense of things. And an image from far can look very tight. It can look really clear. And then you go up to it and actually you see scratches and you see erasures or pentimenti, parts that have been erased that can't help but come through. This is also the conversation between the painter and the viewer. Yeah, I remember reading something that Virginia Woolf wrote. She said, "I like to be very mixed." And I really think about this in relation to color. I think that color is there to be mixed. And this idea that you search through color. I feel like most of my searching happens in the color, in the sense that I could be more straightforward, but that is never the color. So even if I end up going around and use something straight out of the tube, that is not inspiring in the same way as having to kind of see these brilliant individual colors, almost get into a mud and then get back out and find the way that tones, they surprise me. I actually spend a lot of time making a bit of a mess with color, and that is also how I find maybe the truth or the juice of the image. And I never really start with a certain color in mind. I just kind of know I have all these colors around me. I try to organize them, then I get them all messy. There's really, there's a lot of surprise with color. Yeah, the hand is, okay, that's a great question, because painting is very physical, and painting has a kind of memory that you can call up without even realizing it, which is also why it's so important to constantly trick oneself into trying new things and into using paint differently, because there can be an almost signature-like quality, which on one hand I like to use, you know, the automatic. I like to balance that out with, let's say, challenges to this automatic way of working. The combination to me feels accurate as a way of achieving more truth, because we are both, as humans, you know, we have these impulses and then we have desires. They seem to be two different kind of sides of the will. But memory isn't always just logical. Sometimes I feel like, where did I even get my ability to draw? You know, I sometimes feel like I'm drawing with other people's hands. And certainly there are people in my family who are very skilled, and people I've never met before. Sometimes I imagine that I'm also being given their skills. So the hand itself, I think, is actually quite mysterious in terms of why do some people just have the capacity to be able to draw, and others, let's say, have to work harder at it, because I also think everyone can draw. But the way that we want to kind of move or relate physically to the canvas, this I'm always kind of trying to change. When I was a teenager, from the age of 12 till 17, I had multiple operations on this arm, on my painting arm. So it was a kind of vulnerable body part. At the same time, it was the tool. So I've had a sort of strange relationship to the physicality of painting, because I understood early on that we don't always have so much choice in how we process illness or physical trauma. And sometimes painting is both a way to exercise some of these experiences, and also it's a way to defy them. And I have often, you know, sometimes I'm frightened of my arm, like, am I using it wrong? And other times I think, it's fine, it's just another body part. But, you know, it's, what I try to also do is paint with my whole body and not just look with my eyes. You know, there's got to be a way where when you're doing something so repetitive, you almost just have to get creative with what it means to maybe, you know, change it up, like physically. Painting is a conversation between multiple voices. There is me and the painting that I am working on. There is me and the paintings that I want to make. There are the paintings that others have made. There is the act of being alive, living and remembering, and then also kind of coincidences and things that may have just happened. It feels like the conversation is with the texture of life and how painting can reflect both a feeling and an energy, as well as an experience of something tangible, material, and physical. So when I say painting is a conversation, I really mean that I am talking both to my material and to the act, and I'm also hearing voices in a kind of an energetic way. I'm hearing and seeing, in a way, things that have already been painted. I think painting really is a kind of continuity, and it's an act like a river flowing, and I get swept up in it. I've actually always been really influenced by writers and the way in which a writer has to, or the way in which a writer can use their life experience, but also change some details. And the line for the reader becomes very curious. Did this really happen? How is it possible to write with so much feeling about something if it didn't happen to you? So for me, when I look at paintings by other people, I sometimes feel as though I made them, because painting can be very empathic in that sense. You can really feel through a painting, through the brush marks or through the colors, the affect of it. It enters you, and the line between perhaps what I made or what I saw blurs. And I think this is a really strange kind of quality of painting. Of course, I know in my mind I didn't make the painting, but it does enter into your nervous system as a potential language or a word, you know, an idea, a tool. So it's something to do with not taking words for granted, and that helps look at the world in a way where there's a way for me to go in and maybe reimagine it. And by reimagining it, I just mean paint it. Because the act of painting is already a reimagining. You know, there's no way that you're ever capturing reality. So I use language like a material, like a color almost, something that I can reshape. And I think that this flexibility between an object and its name is a gap where an image can come through. For me, painting is one of the few activities where one can experience multiple times simultaneously. So there is a feeling that the surface of the painting can hold these different times. The present as it's being made, and a past that I may not be so conscious of, and a future that I don't have to actually think about, but that is still there. So when I'm painting, it doesn't matter if a thought or a feeling I've had is happening in the moment or has already happened or may happen. There's this kind of absorption that painting creates where you feel the presence of multiple times. When I'm in the studio, I think I am extremely focused, but I am also confused because I work on many things at the same time. And partly I do this as a way to not get too comfortable so I can keep this level of questioning. At the same time, I am trying to get into at least a few hours every day of a kind of flow state where the decisions kind of make themselves. There's a lot of discipline to get to that point. And I try and come in every morning without too clear of a directive. I try to let a little bit of feeling determine where my attention can go, because I also set it up so that some paintings are more detailed, some paintings are broader, some paintings are further along, some paintings are just beginning. And of course, there comes a point when I have to wrap it up, or I have to consolidate and be a little more structured. But there's something about using time to just say, you know, you're coming in now, you're leaving in several hours, and anything can happen. So I do need to kind of know and not know in the process. And I think overall, I would say that, I mean, it's funny. Am I happy? Did you ask, am I happy in the studio? I like to not be too serious, even as I take the act seriously. I want to try and let there be room for discovery. So that means I can't be too convinced. You know, if I want to take a break and look at something and I see something in a book or a magazine or online, if somehow it could be integrated, I would take that detour. You know, I really believe that there's a certain listening, there's a certain amount of listening, and you have to be extremely aware of everything as you're making a painting to know how it will really end. Even when I go into it with a kind of vision, the point of a vision is that it can receive other things. I don't think about beauty. I don't think I think about beauty. I know that beauty is a part of painting, but what is it to me? I try not to let aesthetics define the image, in the sense that I don't need a painting to look good because I'm not in advertising. Like, I feel that, you know, as a citizen of the world now, we are bombarded with images that want us to feel a specific thing at a specific time. And oftentimes it's so well done, we aren't even conscious that it is eliciting desire. So the purpose of painting, or the way that I see painting's contribution against this kind of field and flow of manipulative imagery, is to maybe deal with the other side of how things look, meaning they don't necessarily look the way they feel, or they can produce feelings that contradict how they look, or maybe they don't care how they look. You know, I think things like color and shape and scale and texture, they're all in and of themselves pleasurable. There's always something interesting to look at in a painting. And I think by not thinking, or by not privileging what it looks like, I can get closer to something that I wasn't expecting. And in that sense, the surprise of an image is its beauty, you know, or what it makes me think about that I perhaps didn't expect becomes a definition of beauty. But I would never set out to make something beautiful, because I think for too long, maybe that's the least interesting part of painting. If there's beauty in it, it should be almost the accident of not trying to make it beautiful, and therefore it can contribute a new way of defining beauty. You know, it's not, if it's going to be beautiful, it's not going to be an easy kind of beauty, ideally.